Let's start our story with David Hume, a pioneering member of a particular branch of philosophical thought that's become closely associated with the British Isles. You've probably heard of Italian leather or Belgian waffles, but most haven't heard of British empiricism. It might not be that surprising in retrospect. I mean, it does have the word empire in it. Hume's attitude, and the attitude of a lot of British philosophy following his work, leans towards the idea that the primary source of human knowledge is information from the senses, that we mainly justify how we know what we know based on what we see and hear and taste in the world, rather than what we can reason or imagine to be the case, which might be useful in parsing that data, but isn't really informative on its own. In fact, he proposed a principle now known as Hume's fork, splitting all knowledge into two very separate groups: matters of fact and relations of ideas. For example, the statement diamond is harder than steel is a matter of fact, something that you can confirm with sensory data by finding some diamond and some steel, trying to scratch one with the other, and looking at the results. Other matters of fact would be things like it's raining outside or all cats have 3 legs. Note that these are just statements of a particular type. They don't necessarily have to be true. They just have to be able to be confirmed or refuted by looking at actual stuff in the world. On the other hand, the statement triangles have 3 sides seems to be more of a relation of ideas. A triangle is a 2-dimensional shape with 3 sides, so it's kind of like saying triangles are triangles. Other relations of ideas might include things like 2 equals 1 plus 3, or Josh is Josh, which can be proven true or false using only math and logic. Hume thought that these could be useful for analysis, but were never true in virtue of facts about the world, only ever in virtue of themselves. This was an attractive categorization for many philosophers, and is now referred to as the analytic-synthetic distinction. Hume also asserted that any knowledge worth having fell into only one of these 2 exclusive groups. If it didn't, well, if we take in our hand any volume of divinity or school metaphysics, for instance, let us ask, does it contain any abstract reasoning concerning quantity or number? No. Does it contain any experimental reasoning concerning matter of fact and existence? No. Commit it, then, to the flames, for it can contain nothing but sophistry and illusion. Holy crap! It takes an awful lot to get a philosopher to the point of burning books. What got him so riled? Well, it's very easy to conjecture wildly about those subjects, like saying that angels can't occupy physical space, or that mind is made of one kind of substance and body another. But it's very hard to tell if any of that conjecture is right, or what it would mean if it were right, which guesses are better than other guesses, or if it makes any sense to talk about it at all. Hume rejected the fields of theology and metaphysics based on this idea that they were attempting to hybridize the 2 distinct categories of knowledge, that they were trying to derive how the universe is by manipulating abstractions. For Hume, that sort of stuff was only good for making s'mores. Nonetheless, in the early 20th century, almost 200 years after Hume had denounced them as being mere sophistry and illusion, they were still fairly popular subjects for discussion. But some cross-disciplinary scientists, mathematicians, and philosophers started a movement called logical empiricism or logical positivism to really stick a fork in them and stop what they also thought was meaningless wordplay in philosophy. They actually went a step further than Hume and said that any statement made in that in-between region wasn't just pointless, it was actually totally devoid of meaning. The logical positivists suggested an acid test called the principle of verification, claiming that the meaningful content of any statement was identical to the steps that you would take to prove it. This was partially an echo of the scientific revolutions that were happening at this time in history. According to Einstein's general theory of relativity, the concept of simultaneity was meaningless without a reference frame and a method that you would use to time events. And according to quantum mechanics, how you measured something was just as important as what you were looking for. Under the principle of verification, the statement, "there's sugar in that water," actually meant, if you put that water in your mouth, it will taste sweet. The statement, 10 angels could dance on the head of a pin, actually means there is some experiment you could run such that if you felt this, then that would mean that 10 angels could dance on the head of a pin. If no such process existed, then there was no meaningful content to your statement. You might as well have just gone and that's the end of our tale.